Funding for New York Now is provided by WNET. Additional funding provided by the Leo Cox Beach Philanthropic Foundation.
CSEA.
I was born and raised here, and I plan on staying here, having a family here. I am very proud of what I and my coworkers do for a living. I want the community to be a strong one.
Winner of a New York State Emmy for Best Political Program. This is New York Now.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to New York Now. I'm Matt Ryan.
And I'm Casey Seiler from the Times-Union. The Startup Jobs Report is released in what many reporters called the mother of all bad news dumps.
The governor talked about those numbers during a gaggle in Plattsburgh on Wednesday. Pat Bradley from North Country Public Radio is the reporter asking the questions here.
Friday, you had the Empire State Development Report come out, pretty damning on the Startup New York job initiative, where it shows since its inception only 408 jobs. How can you justify the continuation of Startup New York when so few jobs are being created from it?
Yeah, we have a number of economic development projects. And it's people that it's important to understand the different strategies we're using. Startup New York is one program that says we will waive all taxes on new jobs that come into New York. 400 have been created to date, but 4,100 are in the pipeline. Why? Because we just started the program, and when a company agrees to come, it doesn't come tomorrow. The company has to move, it has to give notice, it has to find a factory, it has to move equipment, so there is a lag time. But it costs us nothing, zero, because all the program says is if you come here, we won't charge you tax. But they weren't here to begin with. So it doesn't cost us anything, it just saves them on the income tax.
Well, Governor, I'm following up on that. A lot of the critics would say it does cost the state money because just looking at the advertising for it, at least $53 million was spent to advertise for Startup New York, so that was a cost for the state.
Yeah, except they'd be wrong, because the advertising is generic. Come to New York. And we will help your business grow if you come to New York. And New York is not the frightful place that you thought it was. We're not a high tax state. We'll eliminate taxes. So that's what the advertising did.
All right, we'll have more on that at the Reporters Roundtable in a few minutes. Also this week, the U.S. House Committee on Oversight and Government Reform sent letters to Governor Cuomo and the EPA asking for documents regarding the handling of the water crisis in the upstate town of Hoosick Falls. The town's local assemblyman, Steve McLaughlin, gave his reaction to reporters at the Capitol on Thursday.
I think is nothing short of a bombshell, and if you read those letters, they're pretty hard-hitting. They're pretty blunt and direct about what Congress is seeking from the Cuomo administration, from the EPA, which is an accountability, basically. They're asking for their communications, they're asking for what went on here, and there are some pretty blunt statements in that letter about folks being exposed to tainted water for 18 months longer than they should have been. So a bombshell report or news today out of the U.S. Congress, followed up yesterday, or led yesterday with the Assembly hearings as well. So for my people in Hoosick Falls and Petersburg, I couldn't be more proud of them because, you know, it's one thing for me to be down here as a representative screaming and yelling about why we need hearings. But when we had the people from Hoosick Falls and Petersburg take the time to show up, come down here, stand outside the Senate chamber, and then march down and knock on the governor's door, that's pretty powerful stuff, and that is the people seeking redress from their government. That's exactly what our system is based on. They were being ignored. They will not be ignored. That much has been shown, and they are not going to stop until they get the answers that they so rightly deserve to find out what went on here.
Now, the Cuomo administration has released a statement basically putting the fault back on the federal government, saying that if the federal government had regulated PFOA to begin with, we would never be in this situation. What do you think about that?
Well, I think that the Cuomo administration once again shows arrogance, and probably the worst thing they can do is to continue to dig their heels in, and that's clearly what they're doing.
All right, there are no more sleepy summer weeks at the state capitol. To help make sense of this one, I'm happy to be joined at the Reporters Roundtable by Karen DeWitt of New York State Public Radio, of course my partner Matt Ryan, and Scott Waldman from Politico New York. All right, we just heard Steve McLaughlin talking about congressional action and assembly hearings that have been called to look into the PFOA contamination. What does the congressional, let's break them down, what does the congressional action mean potentially for the Cuomo administration and the EPA?
Well, basically, this is going to be the start to hearings. There are no federal hearings scheduled yet, but this probe, in looking for all these documents, has already cast this in a national light. There's already national outlets covering this and comparing it to Flint. So you have that on one level, that we have this comparison, this becoming a national story. And then on another level, you have subpoena power from this congressional committee. They could easily unturn some pretty brutal things that revelations that none of us have found yet for the administration.
Yeah, right now they're asking for all of these documents regarding Hoosick Falls and PFOA, but they're not issuing subpoenas. But certainly the threat is there because they have the power to do that. And if, the implication is perhaps if they're not satisfied with what they're getting, they could subpoena, though I guess I understand they don't use that power all that often, but it's still there. It's, it's like speaking softly and carrying a big stick, I guess, or something.
As they say, it's not nice to fool Mother Nature. It's not nice to short a congressional inquiry, I guess.
We saw this, in Michigan, where there was a Republican governor, and so now we've got a Republican Congress potentially going after now a Democratic governor. Do we kind of, keep it even on both ends there? It'll be interesting to see where this goes.
Meanwhile, the State Assembly, in what I think we would all agree is a reversal, all through the session, Speaker Carl Heastie, Democrat like the governor, said, no, I don't think the need is there for hearings. What changed this week?
Well, there's a backstory to that. Cuomo issued an executive order. He's going to take over daycare in New York City. And he blamed New York City Mayor Bill de Blasio and Assembly Democrats for blocking a bill that would have done this. So he's taking executive
regulation
order
of daycare
for regulating
centers,
daycare. And he said, the Assembly was condoning abuse of children. Well, that just was, I think, was the last straw for Speaker Carl Heastie. He issued a scathing statement saying, enough of this pointless fight you're having with Bill de Blasio.
Feel like we're stuck in the middle.
Yeah, I'm tired of you playing politics. You're the last person to accuse someone else of playing politics. And then the next day, suddenly we see these hearings announced that we know Cuomo was doing everything to avoid. He does not want this to become his Flint, Michigan. And he has tried, in every way to downplay this story. It seems to be backfiring, frankly, the more he tries to downplay it. But still, it is under the radar screen. It's not a national story yet.
It's got a story that the governor's people, as well as the people of Hoosick Falls and Petersburg, another Rensselaer County community that has been dealing with PFOA contamination. You reported in Politico New York that the levels that have been found at landfills in both of those communities are alarmingly high.
That's right. 21,000 parts per trillion, which is actually even higher than the factory connected to the pollution itself. That's in the landfill in Hoosick Falls. Petersburg preliminary results show around 4,000 parts per trillion. Again, very, very high. It's not clear exactly where these plumes of pollution are flowing. There are homes near both landfills, both of which are capped right now. It's also worth noting that the other St. Gobain facility, that's the company connected to the pollution, has not yet been tested in Hoosick Falls. It's 8 months since they were told not to drink their water, and that other factory has yet to be tested. I'm not sure why that is. But there's still clearly the spread of this. We don't even have any sense of how far it's gone, I think is what that shows.
Well, you had that picture in your story that you took of the brown water trickling out of the ground. Frankly, I don't understand how that is happening in this day and age when we have a Department of Environmental Conservation. We've had an environmental movement and regulations for like 45 years. I mean, I'm just puzzled by
It's going
that.
right into a stream and then into the Hoosick River as well. That
Was there
brown
any
water.
explanation why no one had, thought to try to do anything about
No.
this in the last few decades?
Which is,
Yeah.
of course, is going to make it difficult because the long-term solution that people are saying for Hoosick Falls and for Petersburg is finding another watershed. And if we don't know the size of the plume, how can they do that?
Exactly. I think this shows, and this is a very serious thing, that the watershed itself may be too polluted. That's the larger area where all the water flows. So the geography there is unique. There's a belief that you can drill down and find a new aquifer that's not tainted. So hopefully that could happen.
But expensive.
Very
Yeah.
expensive. Let's move on to something else that is very expensive, which is the Startup New York Jobs Program,
That's right.
despite the governor's claim that it costs the state zero. We saw that at the top of the show, the governor offering a defense. We're speaking on Friday morning. Last Friday afternoon, as we were all getting ready for a 3-day weekend, the long-delayed, three-month-long delayed Startup Jobs Report came out that found that the program, which produced 76 jobs in 2014, produced 332 jobs in 2015. How would you characterize those numbers, Karen?
Well, it does seem like that it wasn't very good news, which was why it was buried. And there wasn't even a press release. It appeared on a website. And we have to credit our Newsday colleague, JT Medor, who used to be a frequent guest on this show, because he kept watch on that website all week and actually shared the information with other reporters.
A
Here
remarkable
it is.
act of generosity in a competitive business.
I was away by then, but I did do a story this week, and I think a lot of reporters did pick up on it this week because they tried so hard to bury it. I think it kind of, again, backfired on them that they actually got more attention to this report than if they had just, maybe put out a release on a Tuesday or, maybe picked a busy Tuesday.
And again, releasing it at that time is sort of a commentary, obviously, in and of itself. No press release, and right before a 3-day weekend, they sort of tried to portray it as a success since then after we've been able to pin them down. But I think that is all the commentary you need.
What about the governor's claim that the program, the advertising essentially costs zero, that the ads for Startup New York are generic? It struck me, looking at many of the ads that came out, that seems to emerge from a Cuomo reality distortion field.
Yeah, we were, I looked at the ads too as part of preparation for my story, and they were clearly branded startup. Come here, it's tax-free. But he said, no, it's a more generic message that, New York is more business friendly. And I guess that was the secondary message of it. But they were clearly branded as startup, and it cost $53 million for so far 408 jobs. So they say more are coming, 4,100 jobs by 2020. But
Governor Cuomo, he said more jobs are in the pipeline, 4,100, like you said. But there's no question that the fact that they were released on July 4th weekend, the Cuomo administration is not happy, and they were trying to bury the information. I mean, that's pretty obvious.
The director of the startup program said that there is a very steep, or very steep hockey stick, I think she said, for the growth in the program. She, of course, is leaving the program.
That's right. She's leaving this week to take another job in Connecticut. She said it has nothing to do with the success or failure of the program. She just got a better offer.
We wish her well. Somebody else who got a very a piece of bad news this week is Steve Pigeon. We are, of course, speaking. We were off last week, so we were not able to discuss the indictment of the Western New York, long-time, almost political fixer, legendary for his survival skills. 9 felony counts brought against him, including bribing a state Supreme Court judge who only the day before Pigeon appeared in court had pleaded guilty to 2 felonies related to this.
Well, I've heard his name the whole time I've been working in state government. He's been close to Governor Andrew Cuomo, to Hillary Clinton. He was part of the Senate coup in 2009, helping Tom Golisano, who was unhappy with the Senate Democrats and caused that chaos all in the summer. And yeah, he's known as the fixer. And it's just the question now is, will anyone else be brought into this scandal? Is he going to talk? Is he going to implicate others? Or is it going to just be confined to him?
He was so effective at his job. It wasn't just local politicians that he helped get elected. I mean, he raised money for Andrew Cuomo. He's connected to Hillary Clinton. I mean, his connections go quite far. That's not to say any of them did anything wrong. There's no suggestion that they have. But still, I mean, his reach is incredibly far.
We were talking earlier in 2009 when the coup happened, and we were trying to land Pedro Espada for a TV interview. I mean, I called Steve Pigeon. I mean, Pedro Espada is from, southern Westchester and the Bronx, and he got hooked up with Steve Pigeon, who's a pillar in Western New York politics. So he's very well connected and, like you said, well known to all reporters.
I always said that the line on Steve Pigeon is, if an asteroid was hurtling toward the planet, you would want to be standing next to Steve Pigeon because he would probably come up smiling. All right, well, that's about all we have for the Reporters Roundtable this week. So thanks very much to Karen DeWitt of New York State Public Radio and Scott Waldman from Politico New York.
In this week's New York Now poll question, we're asking, what is your opinion on the recently released startup New York job numbers? Check out our choices online. There's the address, nynow.org. Last time we saw you, we asked, will you be voting in your congressional primary, which took place at the end of June? And it warms our hearts to say that the vast majority said yes. Warren in Cohoes said, if I don't vote, I have zero say in what happens. My preference may not win, but if I don't try to help them and they lose, I'm partially to blame. And Kurt in Schenectady, inform yourself and vote for the candidates that move this country into the rest of the 21st century. Thanks to Kurt, Warren, and everyone who took the time to vote. Remember, you can do so at nynow.org. While you're voting, you can also explore the rest of our website featuring shows of ours from the last 6 years and links to us on Facebook, Flickr, and Twitter, where our handle is at NYNow_PBS. And now we'll send it over to Casey for the rest of the program. He is at the news desk.
Well, the water contamination in Hoosick Falls became a statewide story about 6 months ago. This summer, my paper, The Times-Union, is taking a statewide look at many of the issues in play in that Rensselaer County community in the series Toxic Risks. Here to talk to me about it is Lauren Stanforth, one of the reporters who has written a half-dozen stories, I believe, for this series. Lauren, what your reporting shows is that Hoosick Falls' situation is not at all unique around the state, right?
Yes, that's right. There are some 400 Superfund sites, state Superfund sites, and a lot of them have not been fully cleaned up yet.
So PFOA only recently was added, PFOA being the contaminant that we're dealing with in Hoosick Falls. It was only recently in January added to the state's list of regulated substances. Is that also something that is a statewide problem? And what state officials and even some federal officials have said is that there's not enough research on the potential health impacts of PFOA. That's a situation that's similar for a lot of substances that have contaminated a lot of communities, right?
Yeah, I mean, we've seen this over the last 4 or 5 decades, you know, as chemicals have been found in people's drinking water, their well water. They've risen up through the ground as vapors into people's homes, into businesses. The government has learned as these have occurred that these chemicals end up being possibly dangerous to human health. And so the EPA knew that PFOA was possibly a danger to human health, but I don't think the state had an actual distinction yet when the Hoosick Falls situation happened. So this has happened over the decades that chemicals are being introduced into the environment, and there's kind of a catch-up that occurs in terms of government regulation about how to address those chemicals.
Government regulation on individual chemicals and also on corporate behavior. I mean, we're talking about chemicals, some of which went into the ground or into the water decades ago when corporate behavior probably was treated, or basically, not to put too fine a point on it, where dumping was more readily accepted or at least performed by corporations. Is that right?
Oh, there used to be almost no regulation about dumping. And so, but the problem is a lot of chemicals do not go away. They do not disappear. And so there was a huge amount of dumping, you know, when, after World War II and industry was booming in the US, there were so many chemicals that were dumped just right into the ground. People have told me that at landfills a truck would back up and literally they would just turn the nozzle and let the chemicals just dump out into a lagoon. And there would just be a lagoon of chemicals, sitting there on properties. And so that was incredibly common. It happened everywhere. And so we deal with that legacy still today because a lot of those chemicals do not just disappear. They still stay in the ground.
You mentioned the designation as a Superfund site. That, of course, it almost seems like it's invoked as a magical word, for dealing with this problem. Along with the series, you and others at the Times Union worked on videos. One of the people you spoke to was Judith Enck, who's the regional director of the Environmental Protection Agency. And here's Judith Enck explaining exactly what Superfund is and where it came from.
Jimmy Carter recognized this problem, created the Federal Superfund, which is based on a polluter pay principle. So if you have a company like GE that created the pollution, they're required to pay the cost of cleanup. And the Hudson River cleanup so far has cost them over $1 billion. However, there are many sites where the companies are gone. They're bankrupt, they have no resources. And in those instances, we use the Federal Superfund dollars, which is very, very limited. Federal Superfund dollars used to be provided by fees on chemicals and petroleum products. But about 10 years ago or so, Congress let those fees disappear, and they've been backfilling it with tax dollars. But Superfund is running on fumes.
So running on fumes, I mean, what exactly does that mean for many of these communities? I mean, what does it mean when a Superfund site is designated?
Well, Superfund is literally just a legal term that allows the state or federal government to go into private property and test whatever they want to test and do any remediation that needs to be done, and then possibly try to get the money back from the company after they've done the cleanup.
And is it correct to say that federal Superfund site, the most perilous, state Superfund site, not quite so bad, still bad? Yeah. And what about brownfield? Of course, that's another designation that we hear a lot when talking about contaminated sites.
Yeah, you hear that term a lot. It's another technical term for a property that can be redeveloped. So generically, a brownfield possibly wouldn't be as badly contaminated as a Superfund site. A developer will get tax credits to redevelop the property. They're called brownfield tax credits. So typically, those sites are redeveloped for commercial or industrial use.
Love Canal in 1976 sort of brought us the Superfund program in a way. People forget that it was in New York. It was Western New York where Love Canal occurred, right outside of Niagara, I believe. What's really the legacy of that in terms of the way that people think about this problem?
Well, people do kind of forget about any of the details surrounding that case, but the reason why anyone is concerned about environmental contamination is largely because of Love Canal. Love Canal it's a strange name. People don't even understand why it's called that, but there was somebody named William Love who was a developer in the late 1800s who decided that if you made a canal from Niagara River to Lake Ontario, you could develop your own hydropower, you could build a whole community around it. And so it didn't go anywhere, but what happened is the city of Niagara Falls and a chemical company dumped toxic waste there instead until the 1950s. And then the Niagara Falls School District bought the property thinking it was capped and everything was fine, and they built schools on it. And then they built houses on it. And so the kind of regulations that exist today that wouldn't allow such irresponsible dumping and would allow building on a chemical landfill would never occur. But back then, there was no such regulation. So Jimmy Carter actually stepped in at the time, and that's why Superfund exists today, is because of Love Canal.
So you also ventured to other communities, to Hopewell Junction in Dutchess County and other places that have been dealing with contamination for a decade, even 2 decades in some cases. Is there a chance that PFOA in Hoosick Falls could become one of those situations where sort of after the caravan has moved on of the media conceivably and also state officials, that these communities will be left to deal with these things as almost a chronic condition, as opposed to maybe a terminal crisis where they get a lot of attention?
Absolutely. I mean, it happens often that these things kind of, blow up in the public and it gets attention, but then residents are left with filters still on their well water and sub-slab depressurization systems to keep vapors from entering their house. And there's never any permanent solution offered. In Hopewell Junction in Dutchess County, they still have filters. The contamination has never been actually remediated. That was a TCE contamination, a solvent contamination. And literally the federal government says there's no money to remediate that contamination. And so residents are left with lowering property values as well.
So that's a community that learned about this, I believe, about a decade and a half ago. What is the backlog, either on the state level or the federal level, or even on the local level, I guess, in assessing the level of contamination in sites around the state? How backed up are officials?
Well, usually sites they do know there's contamination, but to finally remediate them takes decades, and sometimes it never is finally remediated. The political pressure isn't there, the political will isn't there, there's no money. And so we often found in our investigation that Superfund sites were declared in the 80s, and it is now 2016, and they still not have been fully remediated.
Sobering. Unreal. Thanks a lot, and I recommend that everybody go to the Times-Union and take a look at these stories. Lauren Stanforth, great work. Thank you.
Thank you.
And a reminder, you can read the entire Toxic Risks series on my paper's website, timesunion.com. Well, that's all the time we have for this week. For Matt Ryan and everyone here at New York Now, thanks for watching. We say goodbye today with footage from Indian Ladder Farms outside Albany. Have a great week.
Funding for New York Now is provided by WNET. Additional funding provided by the Leo Cox Beach Philanthropic Foundation.
As a bus driver, I'm a very important part of the community. Nothing is more important than the safety of the children. I love the kids. That's what I'm there for, to do my job and deliver them safely and securely.